The Olympian proudly presents an interview with Delaine Eastin.
Thank you so much for being with us today. So our first question for you is, what makes you the best candidate for young people?
Well, because I'm the person that's going to fight for your rights on every level, starting with education. I want to make college tuition free again, as it was for me. It's not a crazy idea. These people coming out of a depression and war figured it out. It was Ronald Reagan who started raising the fees on college attendance. So we can do this. If those people can do it, we could do it. But, you know, I also am the best environmental candidate. I wrote a bunch of very important legislation when I was in the assembly, and I wrote the biggest landfill cleanup bill in the state's history, because all over the state there were these landfills, like in San Leandro, California, where they had been dumping all this stuff over the years, and then they covered it over, and they went to the city of San Leandro and said, how would you like to get several acres on the bay for $1? So San Leandro, for $1, got a toxic waste dump. And they had to pay, literally, the cost to clean it up was astronomical. So I read a bill that put a tipping fee on all garbage and used it to clean up these old landfills. So I'm good on the environment, but especially I'm good on education. And nobody has done more to move the needle for education than I have.
California is ranked in the bottom half of school spending. What do you think should be done about this?
Well, I mean, budgets are statements of values. We used to be fifth of the 50 states in per pupil spending when I graduated from high school in the Bay Area. Now we're 41st. So, but we're number one in per prisoner expenditure. So you need to have a governor that's going to say the most important thing we do is educate our children. We're going to be in the top 10 in education. We're going to be in bottom 10 in what we spend per prisoner. And, you know, and we got to stop locking everybody up. We got to end the school to prison pipeline. And that means, really and truly, the way you keep people from crime is you give them a great education. There's data that shows us that the most well-educated people are the least likely to commit crimes.
In the wake of the Florida school shooting, what do you think should be done to promote school safety?
Well, I mean, there's a bunch of people that want to put up fences and wires and have armed guards. What I want to do is ban assault weapons. What I want to do is say you shouldn't have machine guns, essentially, that were designed so you wouldn't have to take any prisoners, frankly. So these bullets were created for the Vietnam War. They're intended to take people out permanently. And the fact is, when the shooting occurred in Stockton, the bullet went through a wall, went through the teacher's desk, went through a file cabinet, went through another wall, and went into the next classroom. These bullets have such velocity, they're not allowed to be used for hunting. So what are we doing here? And by the way, the Constitution actually says the reason you want to have the right to keep and bear arms is to have a well-maintained militia. Well, guess what? We have a militia now. They didn't when they wrote the Constitution, but we have a National Guard. We have an Army. We have a Navy. We don't need a well-ordered militia. And so the idea that we would have these very dangerous weapons, I voted for the assault weapon ban in California, and I debated the people that were opposed to it. One of them got up and said, I'm here in the legislature Monday through Thursday, and I want my wife to have an assault weapon so she can shoot any bad guy that comes through our front door when I'm not home. I said, well, I'm glad I don't live across the street from you. I was the next speaker, because that bullet will go through that bad guy and through my front door and kill me in my living room. These bullets are far more vicious than a lot of people realize.
What should we be doing about water conservation? What steps should the state take to prepare for future droughts?
Well, the state needs to have a long-range water plan. The last long-range water plan was done by Governor Brown. That would be Pat Brown, 1957. Isn't that stunning? So the fact is that we need to do a long-range plan. Last year, we had a record rainfall. We're back to drought this year. But last year, most of that rain wound up in the ocean because we had no plan to capture it, to store it, to use it to re-inject in aquifers. We ought to be encouraging people to capture their rainwater with these rainwater capture barrels. In my house, I have a tankless water heater, which is intended to save a lot of water, and my water bill did go down because of it. I took out my front lawn and I put in drought-tolerant plants because, in fact, we need to do that in California. We live in a desert. But first things first, you got to do a long-range plan. And by the way, the state of California makes every city and every county do a long-range plan. It's just not doing it itself. That's ridiculous.
In the wake of the Me Too movement, what do you think should be done about sexual harassment and assault?
Well, first, we need to say this ends right now, right here, right now. It is absolutely outrageous that especially in the legislature of the state of California, we used public money to buy the silence of women and men that were being harassed. That is ridiculous. And so we ought to train everybody on what sexual harassment is, why it's illegal, and why it's grounds for you being dismissed from your job if you do it as a public figure. As a private figure, we ought to strengthen the laws that allow people to come forward when they've been harassed. Let's face it, most of the people that are being harassed are women, but there are a few men. Bottom line is it isn't okay in any case, whether it's public or private, and it should never, ever be tolerated in the state of California. It's absolutely outrageous.
What do you think about the state sanctuary law and the issue of undocumented immigration?
Well, I think California should be a sanctuary state, and I salute all the sanctuary cities that have stepped up to protect the people that live there. If you came to California at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and were raised here, you don't think of yourself as somebody from Mexico or El Salvador or anywhere else. You think of yourself as a Californian. And we should protect all of our citizens who, whether they're documented or undocumented, whether they're naturalized or not, if they live in California and they play by the rules, we ought to be protecting them with every ounce of our being, because that's who we are. You know, think about the students that are working with you today. All of us are the children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren of immigrants. That's who we are. In your life, if you ever meet 100% Native American, you should go, wow, because sometimes you'll meet somebody that's 25% or 10% or 5%, but very few people. And by the way, nobody treated anybody worse than we treated the Native Americans, so let's get clear here. Everybody who lives here should be treated as a brother and a sister.
All right, last question. If you win, will you promise to give our class another interview, Castro Valley High School Olympian?
I absolutely will. When I win, you will have one of the first interviews, and you will also, I hope you'll cover the inaugural. It would be good to have your class at the inauguration. And it'll be the first woman who's ever been governor in the history of California. So.
All right, thank you so much for your time today. Thank you.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Great job.
Thank you.